government to halt its intended amendment to the Mineral Royalties Act as global superpowers lobby intensively to maintain the 5% royalty rate. Also coming up, President John Dramani Mahama orders the National Food Buffer Stock Company to purchase local rice for schools in Ghana. And later in the bulletin, Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, declares indefinite nationwide strike over delayed salary structure and conditions of service. Details of all of these and more coming up for the next 1 hour. Do let us know what you make of the many stories we have for you this evening. And it is because you can use the platforms Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And your messages are always welcome. Before the details, let's bring you the news summaries. Hello, Christabel.
Hi, Martin. Happy Independence Day in advance.
And to you as well, yes.
Thank you very much. And to all our viewers and listeners here on 3FM. In our summaries this evening, the paramount chief of the B traditional area, Tobega Gabusu the Sixth, has raised concerns about the state of the Volta Regional Hospital, describing the facility as a death trap despite its elevation from a municipal hospital. The chief, who made an unannounced visit to the hospital located in Hohoe on Tuesday, expressed displeasure, noting that the upgrade of the hospital in status has not been matched with infrastructural and logistical supports. On the education front, Education Minister Haruna Idrisu has said his focus as an appointee in the Mahama administration is to deliver on the mandates given to him rather than harbor a presidential ambition. He says the challenges confronting the education sector are his utmost priority, which he hopes to fix by the end of his tenure as minister. The Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, has declared a nationwide strike beginning Monday, March 9, 2026, citing the government's failure to implement a new salary structure and conditions of service agreed upon with the union. The industrial action is expected to see more than 60,000 members withdraw their services across the country, potentially affecting operations within the civil service and local government service. Government has directed that rice supply to schools across the country be procured centrally through the Ghana Buffer Stock Company Limited as part of efforts to ensure the use of locally produced rice in school feeding. In a directive issued from the presidency and cited by 3 News, John Dramani Mahama, who is the president, expressed concern that several schools continue to purchase imported rice despite an earlier government policy encouraging institutions to source foods items locally. Finally, the Ghana National Fire Service in the Ashanti region has launched an inter-market fire safety quiz competition aimed at educating traders and market leaders on fire prevention and management. This initiative forms part of efforts by the service to reduce fire outbreaks in major trading centers across the region through public education and stakeholder engagements. These again are on our website, 3news.com. I am Christabel Success Trevor. Martin, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let's settle for the details of our stories now, and we are starting from issues of the development in the Middle East, and clearly it is having some attendant impact on a lot of countries, Ghana not excluded from it. But away from that, we are learning that the United States of America and China and their other global players within the minerals space are mounting intense pressure on government to suspend its ongoing amendment of the mineral royalty legislation currently before Parliament. Lands Minister Emmanuel Ama Kofi-Boa, in the wake of the lithium mining royalty saga, introduced an amendment to the legislative instrument seeking to change the 5% fixed rate and replace it with a sliding scale royalty system, which allows the country to benefit when commodity prices increase on the world market. That policy decision, however, is not sitting well with global superpowers and top mining executives and Wall Street, who argue that the amendment will squeeze out profit margins and make operations expensive in the world's leading producer of gold, which is Ghana. Global news agencies Reuters reports that the embassies of the US, China, as well as the UK, Canada, Australia, and South Africa have been engaging officials at the Lands Ministry seeking to halt the parliamentary process. Senior sources engaged by Reuters say that the royalty amendment has united mining companies who are pushing for a withdrawal of the LI from Parliament. But where are we with the legislative instrument? In a moment, we'll find out from our parliamentary correspondent who's been following the conversation in Parliament for us, and then also find out from the industry analysts what they make of this decision or the pushback from some of these international bodies who are interested in Ghana's royalties, Ghana's minerals, I should say. First, let's start from Parliament and speak to Christian Yali, who is our correspondent. Christian, thank you for your time. What do we know about the LI? It was laid by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Has it matured? What's the latest regarding that?
All right, Martin. So this legislative instrument was laid on December 19th, 2025. It was that very day that Parliament went on recess. Usually when LIs are laid, they take 21 certain days to mature, and then once they mature, they automatically take effect. And so, by calculation, once Parliament went on recess on that day and resumed from recess on 3rd February 2026, when you do the calculation and do the count, it means that this LI, which is the Mineral Royalties and Regulation 2025, would mature next week, Tuesday, 10th March 2026. Now, ordinarily, if they had not start on Monday and had start on Tuesday, it would have matured on Wednesday, which is 11th March. But because next week Parliament is going to begin extended sessions and they will sit on Monday, it means that it will take effect from Monday and will mature on Tuesday. So as we speak right now, Martin, the fly or the regulation has not matured yet to take effect. Now, the nitty-gritty of this or the detail of this is that it is seeking to introduce what experts call the sliding scale royalty regime. Now, when you say sliding scale royalty regime, it means that once the minerals are being mined, for the key one here is the lithium. Once it is being mined, the rate of royalty that the country gets will be pegged with the price on the market. And so the higher the price of the commodity or the mineral on the market, the higher the royalty, so that it is not static. It is not a fixed rate. So what it means is that when the prices drop, royalty will drop. When the prices go higher on the international or the market, it also rises. What it means is that per the explanation we have received from experts and from the minister himself, we could have the royalty rate come to somewhere low as 5 to 7%, and can go as high as 12% and even higher than that, based on what is happening. Now, what government is seeking to do is that beyond the mining of lithium in Awoya in the central region, they are seeking to extrapolate or extend or widen this policy or regulation to affect the entire mining stream or sector, so that it affects gold, it affects bauxite, it affects any other mineral. So far as government implements this new LI or regulation, it means that whatever royalty or whatever mineral we are mining in the country, the scale of royalty that the country gets would be sliding up or down based on the fluctuations of the world prices.
It's a good explanation and background you've provided for this conversation. But now, so talk to us about the concerns being raised by these other countries that usually have purchased our resources. We are learning that US, China, and the global players within the mineral space are asking government to suspend this LI or withdraw it totally. What are the key concerns they are raising here?
No, so I think in one way, what the ministry will tell you is that once this is applied or takes effect, it would bring some level of certainty to both government, to the companies involved, and also to the investor, that whatever be the case, no one is going to be shortchanged. Now, when you look at some of these superpowers that are taking case towards, or we understand from the reports that they are engaging the ministry to halt this, I think in a way there is some level of fear that this could not augur well in the long run. That is more or less like the primary reason for which these superpowers are now beginning to, raise those concerns that they are raising before the minister. And so when you read the reports very well from that global news agency Reuters and what they are saying, it just means that engagement is ongoing. Now, they are pushing for a withdrawal of it. Maybe we may want to later get some specifics if the minister would want to speak, or if someone from the ministry would want to tell us exactly what is the fear of these countries that we are mentioning. But largely and by large, one of the issues, and also, Martin, because this has had some history, from when the initial mining lease was introduced and there was a fixed royalty of 5%, and you had even the minority raising concerns that when we peg it at a static rate of, let's say, 5%, then it means that even if things are going well on the international market, the country would, and if that is the case, then we are not going to accrue the necessary benefit. Now, this, in a way, others see it to have been official something for the other parties on the other side, which means that wherever or whichever countries are coming to buy some of our export from us and take to their countries would, on the other side, benefit from it. And so I sense it from where I sit, from my neutral perspective and from my layman understanding, that the fear really for these superpowers could be that, in a way, it would affect them, and it would affect the kind of benefit or the kind of, they could have made from a static rate or a rate that is not sliding based on what the international market would determine. And so maybe going forward, we'll get exactly what the detail, the specifics are concerning their, reservations about this legislative instrument, Martin.
Right, and then finally, before you take leave of us, did you say, or do we get a sense that this decision of laying this particular bill before the House has bipartisan support?
Yes, and when you talk to both sides, in fact, when the minister laid the LI and even addressed us on how he feels about it, we've had some members from the minority side who had always opposed a static rate. In fact, from the beginning, the minority was even of the view that the 5% was low and government could raise it, even if it is going to be a static one. Government could at least maintain the 10% that they had introduced during their time, which was equally highly debated and criticized. And so, by and large, and this sliding scale regime is one that, let's say, even Imani Africa, for instance, has lauded that, and during the consultations towards the relaying of this bill before the House, the ministry or even the Committee on Lands and Natural Resources had engaged stakeholders, including Imani Africa, for instance, who proposed it, and the energy sector players as well, who had, agreed to this sliding scale idea. You would recall that even the minister himself had addressed the press at the ministry even before coming to lay the LI before the House. And so, by far and by extent, you get the understanding that many would see this to be in the interest of the country, such that as higher as the prices go, the higher the country would benefit from the royalty, because then there are percentages. At least I know that there is about 1% of the royalty that is going to develop the communities in which these minerals are being mined, especially when you mention Ewoya in the Infantiman constituency. About 1% of the royalty rate will be dedicated to developmental projects. And so if we get a higher royalty rate based on the price regime on the international market, then the communities would equally get the relevant benefits of it. And so many experts have lauded this as okay, yet you would have some reservations from some of the minority MPs who believe that even with the sliding scale, there could be a better. In fact, you would remember that they even called for the resignation of the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, who is equally acting as Environment Minister, for the back and forth, because he had laid an airline that introduced the 5% royalty rate, and now he withdraws that and brings back another airline that comes with a sliding scale regime. They had wanted him to even resign for what they termed as inconsistencies. And so we see how what is currently trickling in would, cause a different conversation other than what we already know.
Thank you very much, Christian Yali, for that report from Parliament. He is a parliamentary correspondent updating us on the LI that has been laid in Parliament having to do with government's decision to withdraw an initial one which sought to maintain the 5% fixed rate of our mineral royalties with what, to the layman, we can just call a sliding scale, which then gives us a range, low and a high point from which we can be benefiting depending on the development of the international market or where we do sell these these minerals when we do extract them. But what exactly is the concern of these international bodies or the other countries that are usually those that purchase these resources from us? They are raising concerns about the decision of government to switch from the fixed rate to one that gives us some space to do more business. Let's speak to a member of our research team here at Media General, Wisdom Safo, who has also been following this particular story keenly. Wisdom, thank you for joining us. To start with, what do you make of the decision, first of all, to switch from a fixed rate to one that gives us space to operate, a bit more room, a high point and a low point?
Martin, for you to appreciate this, you have to understand what gold means for Ghana as it stands. Gold is contributing about 63% of all our export earnings. Now take note, you realize that all these large-scale mining companies, right, when they sell their gold, the receipts currently has been directed by BOG to go into the commercial banks. At first, it used to go to the central bank for Forex. So any receipt that comes in it benefits us. Gold is an important asset when you are talking about the Ghanaian economy. Now, this sliding scale simply means that when the prices are going high, you'll be getting more royalties, so more revenue will be trickling in for us as a revenue that the government receive from these large mining companies from the extraction of our minerals. So let's talk about lithium. Let's talk about the recent lithium agreements that was signed. That the land minister had to go and renegotiate, because initially the percentage that was signed by the former land minister, Jinapo, was 10%. And Amakufibua, the current minister, said that the 10% was actually in violation of our Minerals Act, which fixed it as 5%. For us to be able to change it back, we have to amend the act. That's why he laid the LI to change the flat rate to a sliding scale, now between 5 and 12%. So when the prices of gold, and currently prices of gold is surging, right? It is over $5,000 per ounce. So anytime we are having an increase in gold prices, then you are getting more percentage in terms of royalties. It will increase our revenue. And I did a projection. I realized that if you are able to implement this sliding scale, it's actually going to give us an additional $1.4 billion in terms of receipts. But for mining companies, and I was digging deep, I realized that if you look at Newmont, you look at Anglo Gold Ashanti and all these mining companies, most of them are owned by US, Australia, China. Most of them, very natural for them to be pushing.
And do they have any legitimate concern about the call for Ghana to withdraw this bill? Clearly, it's about issues of interest, right?
Exactly.
They know that they have enjoyed the fixed percentage over time, and although it had been moved to 10, which they had initially agreed to, this new withdrawal and relay of the LI to give an increase from the 10 to at least 12, and then the base of at least 5, means that they cannot determine for Ghana how much we will earn, irrespective of global development.
It's about projections. Martin, you realize that gold is projected to what increase on the global market,
so
right?
It's a projection.
Yes, we are projecting
it's not
that.
Actual.
Well, you can also talk about this Iran wars and geopolitics feeding in, because people are finding gold as a safe haven for their investment. So if you are projecting that gold prices are going to increase and you are expecting a lot of windfalls, you would like to cloud back these windfalls, and you would not like to pay it to the government. And the government also is coming with a smart move that, look, okay, I've also projected and I've realized that gold is also going to increase on the international market. Then what will I do? I'll also change my royalties, fix it in a way that when the prices are going very high. I heard Christian mentioning Imani have actually they were calling for the government to implement this sliding scale, and it's actually going to cushion us, protect the Ghanaian interests, such that when the prices are surging, when the prices are high, we will be getting higher revenue in terms of royalties being paid to us. Maybe talk about 11, 10%, 12%. And when the prices are low, okay, we will say, okay, fine. Now prices are low. To cushion you the large extractive mining companies, then you will lower it to maybe 5% for you.
Right.
So that you will also be able to break even and all that. So it's all about interest. It's all about quid pro quo.
And they are looking also at the fact that this decision could squeeze their profit margins.
Definitely.
So can you imagine that, for instance, we stay at even the initial fixed rate of 10% that was proposed, if even we stay there. And like you're indicating, gold prices surge way beyond. We are shooting ourselves in the foot to stay at just that 10%.
Definitely.
Whereas this sliding scale gives us the option to maneuver and then increase our profitability as well. So it's a conversation that is currently ongoing, and we thank you for giving us the research perspective to this conversation. Right. Wisdom Safo is with our research team here at Media General, granting us a different angle to this all-important conversation having to do with Ghana's mineral resources and how we can benefit as a country from it, especially now that gold, for instance, is projected to have some a further surge for at least for the next 2 years. And looking at current global trends and the instabilities and uncertainties greeting us all as a human race, people feel that the best place to save your resources would be in gold. So as the leading producer of gold, especially from within the West African sub-region, Ghana needs to position itself very well. Albeit the fact that this particular agreement was laid to in Parliament, and the focus was on lithium, which is also one of the minerals Ghana has discovered and yet to start extracting in mass quantities or commercial quantities. We have broadened this LI to cover not just lithium, but then all our extractives. And we'll see what the position of government will be as we wait for the bill to mature, or the LI to mature in Parliament in the next few days. This is still 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. It is live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra. Let's turn our attention to some other stories now. And the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, has ordered an immediate purchase of all local rice by the Ghana Buffer Stock Company for onward transmission to schools across the country. Government earlier ordered the purchase of the local produce to deal with the glut on the market following the harvest. But with a decentralized food purchase system introduced, school heads still resort to the purchase of imported rice for the consumption of students. The development, which is contributing to the worsening of the glut situation on the market, has forced a new directive from the president, a centralized purchase of all rice produced by the buffer stock for distribution to schools. The new directive recalls a policy introduced last year to decentralize food procurement for schools, allowing school authorities to source food from their local communities. The move was aimed at strengthening domestic agriculture and supporting local value chains. Part of that policy especially encouraged the purchase of locally produced rice to improve market access for Ghanaian rice farmers and reduce the country's dependence on imported food commodities. Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to Evans Sakite, who is a local rice producer in the Akuse area. Mr. Sakite, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening.
What do you make of this news coming in from the president, this order that the national buffer stock buy local rice, especially for our secondary schools?
Oh, thank you very much. I think since December, the president gave this order, and as producers, we were happy about it. It was a good call for producers. But we don't know if it has ever started, because up to now, most of the farmers who produced last year have still not been able to sell their rice. So it's a good call, it's a good policy directive, but we haven't seen the buffer stock in action.
Right. So, like you indicated, the initial order was from last year. Does that mean that between then and now, you, as an association, or your colleagues who are also rice farmers, have not been contacted by any state agency regarding the purchase of your rice?
I would say yes, because I cover a lot of ground, and as a former executive secretary for the Ghana Rice Interprofessional Body, I am very much aware from Kumasi to Seshi, Western region, to Volta region, where a lot of volume is coming from, and then Eastern region, that we have not actually seen the policy being implemented. If the buffer stock is buying somewhere, we want to know who is the one buying, what is the name of the company, where can we find them, what quantities have they bought, and where are the locations they are buying, so that farmers, if the farmers need to transport their wares there, so that we can transport there. If there is designated warehouses, where are they? These are the questions that we are asking, because the policy keeps coming. The Minister of Agriculture, you ask, and he says the same thing. Government has allocated money. You ask Minister of Finance, government has allocated money. The President is giving directives, buy local rice. And we don't know where, we don't know who, and we don't know where the money is.
Wow, that's quite surprising coming from someone who is right in the heart of, producing rice and looking forward to selling it. But, beyond the intervention that government intends to make, what can you tell us about the consumption of local rice and the interest from the market? Are people really interested in it? Do they purchase it? And is it that we have excess and that you want people to be able to buy higher volumes?
Okay, I think for quite some time now, when there was a huge advocacy for consumption of local rice from somewhere around 2014 that I was involved, consumption of local rice has gone very high. We have improved on the quality. Gone were the days where you have to take stones and chaff from it before you cook. It is no more like that. We have well-branded, aromatic, long grain rice on the market, well packaged, just like the foreign rice. So, purchase has been good for a very long time now. But this year and the last year, we have seen the trend of a lot of influx of rice from the smuggled through the land borders. That is number one. So because most of them are not paying duty, they are able to reduce their price so low that the local farmer, after producing, cannot sell or be competitive. And then most of the schools that used to buy from the local farmers and then aggregators are also all those purchases, we don't see it anymore. And it looks as if all those people have diverted and they are buying rice somewhere else. So for the consumption, people are consuming, but I think where the volume of purchase goes through, we don't see it anymore. And it looks as if there is something wrong somewhere.
Wow. So during the period of the advocacy, when the entire nation was, pushing the agenda of buy made in Ghana or buy Ghana produced rice, it was good. The market was looking better, but that campaign and advocacy has slowed down now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't. The advocacy has not stopped. When you listen to some of the radio stations in the morning, there's always the advocacy for East Ghana, even if it is not just rice, but other commodities. So we believe that most of the influx is because most of the importers are also evading tax. They are not paying the right duty, especially through the land borders. A lot of rice is coming through the Togo border and then Ivory Coast side coming in. And so when it's like that, they are able to reduce the price below what the local farmer can do. Because the local farmer and what we produce, our prices are not that high that you say that compared to foreign rice that has passed through the actual borders and has paid duty will be higher than ours all the time. So with the challenge, sometimes somebody will say, oh, the Ghana rice is so expensive. But we forget that the farmers are buying fertilizer. They are buying all forms of inputs, which are also expensive. So equally, if the person is able to produce that rice at the same quality like the foreign rice, it is either the person should sell at the same price because the variety is not different.
Okay. Now, talk to me about the other concern that some Ghanaians had. And it is good you have put on record that previously Ghanaian consumers of our locally produced rice were saying you find stones and other debris in it and that it wasn't nice. But now that is not the case. And personally, I have tasted some very nice local rice. But talk to us about the capacity to produce to meet local demand. There are advocates pushing for the suspension or total halt of importation of rice. But as a farmer, are you confident that if we say we are not going to import today, we will be able to sustain the consumption of rice, which is one of the biggest staples consumed in the country? Can you sustain supply?
Okay, I think the answer there, if you check from the Ghana Statistical Service up to now, there has been increase in production, but we haven't met the consumption rate as a country. Currently, it's about 45% production and 55% import. But the issue is that most of the production that we are doing, although it is going up and we are not able to meet consumption yet, the industry environment itself is not allowing the local farmer to continue to produce and increase production. But the potential is there. And when we are talking about maybe banning, it may not be outright for now. But what we can do is that we know that the southern part of Ghana, we produce between now and July, August, where most of the rain-fed will harvest their rice.
Okay.
The north will also harvest around October, November. What the government can do is that within that window, where the north has harvested and the southern part has already harvested already, between October and December, we can put a temporary ban on import just to hold for some time so that the local farmer can sell. And then maybe January you can open up again. In that case, the farmers will not be able to go into production again. But last year, when the glut started, it started from around October. And people were importing a lot because it was in December. We were
Okay.
going to have Christmas festivities and all those things. And there was not even a quota system to even cut the imports. And that is where government must come in, the Ministry of Trade must come in, the Ministry of Finance must come in. Because what I am envisioning and what everybody needs, what happened with COVID, it could hit us again. Today we are having war in Iran. We don't know how it will escalate to where. And if farmers decide that, okay, they've not been able to sell their products since last year, so they won't produce again. And then these wars escalate, and the places that we are importing rice from and other commodities from are no more bringing us food. What do we do? Because the local farmer can also decide that, okay, I'll put my money in a different business, because when I produce rice or maize, I'm not able to sell.
Okay. And that's going to be quite problematic. Thank you. We'll follow up on this particular revelation you have given us about the fact that although the president has given the directive, very little to no action has been seen, about the purchasing of local rice. We'll follow up on it and subsequently we'll engage you as well. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you too. Thank you too for the opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm available anytime your news team would like to visit some of the key players to go and see the farmers directly.
Right.
To talk to them.
Right. Thank you so much. And we've been speaking to Evan Sakite, who is a local rice producer in the Akuse area, giving a totally different picture as regards what we had known or what we had been told about the directive from government. Let's take our attention to other stories this evening. Mind you, you're listening to 3FM 92.7. This is Hot Edition, and it is live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra. Let's take a quick trip to the Upper West region, where the Wa High Court on Wednesday sentenced the notorious serial killer Sharif Abdullahi, popularly known as Christos, to life imprisonment with hard labor for the murder of 23 people across the country. The convict admitted to killing 16 people in Wa, 5 in Bole, and 1 each in Banda, Nkwanta, and Bamboy. Sharaf Abdullahi was arrested on the 6th of October 2025 following sustained intelligence-led operations by the police. After months of investigations, he was committed by the District Magistrate Court and subsequently arraigned in the High Court on the 4th of March 2026. In court, the accused pleaded guilty to the charges. Based on his own plea, Justice Osewu Suwentri sentenced him to life imprisonment with hard labor. The convict is to serve his sentence at the Nsawam Medium Security Prison. Principal State Attorney Said Abdul Shakur spoke to Mawana Egbeta about the conviction. Let's listen to him.
Yes, he before the court could convict him, the court was a little bit doubtful as to his mental capacity because of the gory nature of the recitations. So the court had to go on inquiry. The court then had to ask him what motivated him to do that. First of all, the court asked him about his name, his parents' name, where he stayed, the work he does. A number of questions the court asked him, he answered truthfully and then coherently. And that was clear to the court that this person was perfectly normal before the court then convicted him. When the court asked him why he embarked on that kind of journey, he said that he had been wrongly convicted some years back to 2 years imprisonment. And that after he left the prisons, the society was very hostile towards him. People ridiculed him. Children pelted him with stones. People insulted him. So at the point, he became so angry that he thought that he should carry it back to society and face the society's spread.
Right. Did we understand what the wrongful conviction was?
I don't think so, because he said that somebody else told and they convicted him for another person. I didn't have the court records were not available at the High Court at the time to determine whether or not he had been wrongly convicted. I think that it was just a ruse. I think he was convicted.
You believe that the explanation that he was wrongfully convicted, reason for which he decided to go on this spree was a ruse?
Yes, I think it was a ruse because he subsequently said that people insulted him and ridiculed him. Of course, those of us who find, those people who find themselves on the fringes of the society, those people who are not sufficiently endowed, sometimes you think that the society is against you, you think that the parent is hostile towards you. And then children, because he was a popular suicide boy, children, at least it's out there that you don't take it easy to some names, particularly in one. That is when people want to call those names to then stir you up.
Now, there's additional detail which he provided to the court, and which is making people ask questions as to his mental capabilities. That he was consuming parts of the bodies of the persons he killed. How true are these stories which are circulating?
Yeah, in that front part, we were aware of that because I have the 4 dockets. He told police that he harvested the parts and used them to make light soup. And that he used his parts, the body parts, the intestines, and then the liver, and then sometimes the penis to prepare light soup. That was the statement he gave to the police. And that is what he repeated, that he used them to make light soup. You see, what is so striking about this matter is that it was not the police that led the man to the locations that he buried the people. He led the police to the places he buried, the shallow graves he buried his previous victims. He took them around various places in where he buried his victims. And that he was very consistent and coherent. In actual fact, at the district court when the committal proceedings were going on, he told the court there that, yes, I said I'm guilty because I killed the person.
Wow, those are some very shocking revelations that were made by the principal state attorney in this case, where a young man has been sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor, and clearly it was on his own admission his own admission to plead guilty, saying that yes, he murdered the individuals in question, and gave some very gory expose regarding what he even did with the body parts, to the extent that we're just being told by the principal state attorney that he said in court, that the convict said in court that he used parts of the bodies of the individuals he had killed for light soup. That is quite shocking. Let's speak to Dr. Jones Opokuware, who is a lecturer, a criminologist, and also with the Department of Sociology and Social Work. Doc, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good evening to you, my brother, and good evening to your listeners. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. From a criminal perspective, or the perspective of a criminologist, what factors could drive an individual to, undertake such serial killings, and not just in one region, but across a number of regions?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, if you look at the typology of serial murder, there are those that we call spree, and there are those we call, classical serial killers. So normally those that we call the spree killers, they kill for fun because they get some kind of thrill. It's more like a thrill seeking. So if you look at what the man was saying, what he's saying is that this guy was killing as a form of revenge. So what happens is that this is a kind of thrill-seeking or a spree killer who was getting some kind of thrilling, effect as he murdered people. There are those people, serial killers that also, those who got the classical one that kills for, financial motives and all those kind of things. But if I look at the pattern, the typology of what we are analyzing, especially what happened in Wa, this I can put in that typology of a spree killer, because everything suggests to me that this was a guy that was driven specifically for trailing motives and some form of revenge. And I think that he was getting some kind of thrill effect as he murdered these people. And for me, that is the motive that I can establish for the typology of this guy. that we are analyzing.
Right. And, some of the things, so you could even tell that for him to accept the allegations against him and to say that, yes, I killed them, and the reason he was giving that an earlier conviction which was slapped on him when he was released after serving that sentence, the reintegration into society was difficult for him because he was being mocked by children, etc. Could that also be a factor to why he undertook these set of killings?
Yeah, so if you look at what he says that it's a form of revenge, for whatever experience he had. And in fact, to be very honest, if you look at the criminological literature and you study serial killers, you get to realize that a lot of them have very different reasons why they do the things they do. Some of them are even very, very weird than what this guy is saying. Okay, for instance, some will tell you that they hear voices. And if you look at a serial killer like, Nathaniel Bar Jonah, this was a guy who used to murder kids. And he'll tell you that his dog was the one that told him to do that. If you look at Ted Bundy, and if you look at Eileen Warnos, all these kind of serial killers have very, very interesting, reasons. For instance, if you look at someone like Eileen Warnos, who was a lady serial killer, and the fact that he murdered so many people, who were very vulnerable in hospitals and other places, he tell you that, look, he needed to do this to especially men because when she was growing up, she was, as it were, abused by men. So normally, what happens is that there's this pattern of revenge, thrill-seeking revenge, in most of, the typologies of serial killers, especially those that are the spree killers. And if you look at their background, they seem to have a story that mimics exactly what this guy is saying. That suggests that it is actually a revenge on what society have done to them. It's a revenge on what, experiences they had probably at a point in their life. So I'm not very surprised that this guy is also, making that kind of allusions, especially based on the fact that he said he had been previously convicted wrongly, and therefore he needed to take it up on society in the manner that he did. Most of the time, if you read the criminal literature, you get to realize that a lot of serial killers have, this kind of things and this kind of explanation for the crimes that they commit.
Right. And finally, before you take leave of us, what lessons can we draw from this particular case, both as a society and then also our security agencies?
Well, I think that from the societal point of view, what we have to realize is that if you look at the number of people he killed, people are very surprised about the number. I'm not surprised because a lot of serial killers work in plain sight. They are people that they live among us. Although they engage in very geographically unrelated murders. They work in plain sight. They are normal people that work with us. So it makes it very difficult for society to detect them and even for the police to even arrest them. That is why the last time when this story came, I actually congratulated the WA police and those people, intelligence guys up north there, because I feel that looking at even the time frame for which they were able to arrest him, it is much shorter than what a typical serial killer normally would take. If, for instance, you look at the number of years that people like, Ted Bundy and Nathaniel Bar Jonah and those guys were arrested, you see that it's relatively longer period of time. But this guy was actually arrested by the WA police just within 3-4 years. And I think that it was very good because a lot of these guys, it's very difficult for you to, pin them down because they work in plain sight. And so communities will have to be very careful. Once they get to be associated with people within community, they need to, be very suspicious of everybody. They need to look at people very carefully, especially people that demonstrate certain suspicious behavior. And for the police, I think that the police have done well. In fact, for the WA police and even the WA court, I think that this is how the Ghana Police Service across the country, or the the commands across the country, I think they should learn a lot from what is happening within the WA Police Command, especially in how they investigate cases and bring perpetrators to book, and how even the court system there is working and making sure that justice is quickly dispensed when criminals are arrested. So I think all in all, it's a very good thing that has happened to the country, and I want to give it up to the police and the court.
We are grateful that you made time to speak with us this evening, Doc. Thank you so much for your time.
You are welcome, my brother.
And that is Dr. Jones Opoku-Ware, who is a a psychologist, and then also he is a criminologist and a lecturer at the Department of Sociology and Social Work. Thank you so much for joining us. This is 3FM 92.7. Time now for the latest in the world of business.
.7 with me, Bismarck. Also coming up tonight, cedi depreciation slows as dollar supply improves. We'll bring you details. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. The cedi's depreciation against the US dollar has slowed sharply in early March 2026, supported by improved dollar supply, reduced foreign exchange demand, and continued intervention by the Bank of Ghana. The local currency showing signs of recovery after a difficult start to the year, with its rate of depreciation against the dollar slowing significantly in the first week of March 2026. There is more in the following 3 business news desk report.
Ghana's cedi showing signs of stability after a difficult start of the year. Earlier in 2026, the local currency had weakened by more than 4% against the US dollar based on price quotes from some major commercial banks. However, since the beginning of the year, depreciation has slowed to about 1.65%. Market analysts say the turnaround began in the second week of February, when the cedi actually appreciated by about 2.21%, according to data from commercial banks. The improvement has been linked to increased dollar supply and reduced demand for foreign exchange from businesses. Some analysts also attribute the trend to the Chinese New Year holidays, which temporarily slowed demand for hard currency. During the period, the dollar moved from 10 cedis 95 pesos to 10 cedis 98 pesos to around 10 cedis 70 pesos to 10 cedis 75 pesos by the end of February.
And that was a 3 business news desk report. Now, government statistician Dr. Asiedu-Dartey is urging households to take advantage of Ghana's falling inflation by planning their finances more carefully as the country records its slowest inflation rate since the 2021 rebasing of the Consumer Price Index. The government statistician is encouraging households to strengthen their financial planning following the continued decline in inflation.
Statistician Dr. Asiedu-Dartey says households could now plan their finances with greater confidence as inflation continues to ease across the economy. He is advising families to closely track spending on essentials such as food, rent, and school fees, avoid non-essential expenses, and set aside small savings whenever possible. According to data from the Ghana Statistical Service, Ghana's inflation rate dropped further to 3.3% in February 2026, down from 3.8% in January, and significantly lower than the 23.1% recorded in February last year. This marks the lowest inflation rate since the 2021 rebasing and the 14th consecutive month of decline since January 2025.
And that was a 3 business news desk report, bringing us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also, for more business stories, please check out our website 3news.com. Andrew Sefa is here for sports. Please stay.
To the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's start off from the camp of the Black Stars, because news coming in has said that Wales will host African opposition for the first time when taking on Ghana in the summer. Craig Bellamy's men will welcome the Black Stars to Cardiff City Stadium on Tuesday, June 2, with the kickoff time yet to be confirmed. Ghana have already qualified for this summer's World Cup, where they will go up against England, Croatia, and Panama in the group stages. Wales will hope to join them in North America and face a playoff against Bosnia and Herzegovina on Thursday, March 26th, with the winners going on to host either Italy or Northern Ireland 5 days later. Wales' only previous game against an African nation was a 1998 friendly in Tunisia, when head coach Bellamy started up front in a 4-0 loss. So on national team football, the 2026 Women's African Cup of Nations has been rescheduled from March to July due to unforeseen circumstances, as stated by the Confederation of African Football. My colleague Akosia Eje provides more details in the following report.
The Confederation of African Football has officially rescheduled the 2026 Women's African Cup of Nations. The tournament was initially scheduled to take place in Morocco from the 17th of March. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, the association have pushed the tournament to the 25th of July to the 16th of August. But the tournament will now be hosted in a time where there is no international break, as there are only 4 more international breaks on the FIFA women's calendar, which are in April, June, October, and from the 24th of November to the 5th of December, which means the tournament will be hosted in a time where women's club football is still very much active, and that could pose a problem for players who play in top flight leagues to come down to their countries to honor the tournament, which also serves as a World Cup qualifier. Then again, CAF did not mention whether the tournament will still be hosted in Morocco or will be scheduled to South Africa, as has been reported already.
And so that was a report by my colleague Akosia Eje about the Women's African Cup of Nations, which has been rescheduled, bringing an end to Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Andrew Sifa Bamfo. Join us same time next week for more updates in the world of news, business, and sports.